Welcome to Corvette Today, the podcast that talks about everything Corvette, with your host Steve Garrett, MC and DJ at one of the largest Corvette weekends in the country, Corvette Fun Fest, president of the Corvette Club of Kansas City, Missouri, and radio disc jockey at the #1 radio station in Kansas City for over 40 years. Here's Steve Garrett.
Thanks for listening to Corvette Today, the podcast that talks about everything Corvette. I'm your host, Steve Garrett. I appreciate you tuning in. You can listen to Corvette Today on all podcast platforms like iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm, Pandora, Stitcher, Audible, Adori Labs, and many more. You can also listen on your smart device. Just say, "Hey Google" or "Alexa, play the podcast called Corvette Today," and you're connected. Also, visit the Corvette Today website. It's CorvetteTodayPodcast.com. You can also sign up for Corvette Today notifications, updates, and information at CorvetteToday.ck.page. And don't forget, join the Corvette Today Facebook group. We have over 2,500 members, and I'd love to have you as a member as well. And I'm also excited to tell you about the new YouTube channel for Corvette Today. Be sure and check out your favorite Corvette Today podcast now on YouTube. First, I'd like to thank our flagship sponsors of Corvette Today, E-Tech. E-Tech is the expert and leader in custom flooring. Whether it's your garage floor, basement, patio, the front steps of your home, or a professional workplace, E-Tech is 4 times stronger than epoxy and comes with a 15-year warranty. There are hundreds of different patterns to choose from, and installation is completed in 1 day. You can walk on your floor in 24 hours. Call for a free estimate at 913-745-3732 or visit etekcustomcoatings.com. 913-745-3732 or etekcustomcoatings.com. I have my garage floor done with E-Tech and absolutely love it. I know you'll love yours too. Another flagship sponsor of Corvette Today is MidEngineCorvetteForum.com. If you'd like to join a new vibrant forum that focuses on the new mid-engine C8 Corvette, it's free to join this friendly community. You'll meet a lot of fellow Corvette enthusiasts like yourself at MidEngineCorvetteForum.com. Also, a shout out to CanadianCorvetteForum.com, welcoming Corvette owners from around the world. It's time to get the latest Corvette news and headlines with my buddy Keith Cornett from CorvetteBlogger.com. As you know, Keith is a regular guest on Corvette Today. He's here twice per month, every other week, to keep you up to date on what's happening with America's sports car. Keith, welcome back. Here we are in June. It's the unofficial start of summer. We've got Corvette news and headlines for everybody.
Well, it's an exciting time, Steve. I know there's some news that people don't want to hear, but summer is here. It's time to get those cars out and driving. Memorial Day. Hopefully everybody had a great day there. Of course, we remember our veterans who served this country admirably and were lost. But at the same time, it is the unofficial kickoff for summer. And there's only one sports car I can think of for summertime driving, and that's the Chevy Corvette. So let's go have some fun.
Absolutely right, buddy. Well, let's get right into it. Give us an update on Corvette production.
Well, we know that the plant has been down. It was expected to open up on Tuesday the 1st. But then on Thursday last week, we found out they were shutting it down again. They tell us it's the same exact thing. Probably what they're doing is they're probably just trying to stockpile right now and get as many of these parts that they're lagging behind. The rumor is that it's been the transmissions or parts for the transmission.
Okay.
Tremec makes those. They're assembled in Michigan, but they do get parts from other places. And we've been hearing that some of those parts do come from Mexico. So it could be that they are having some production delays down there. And of course, that's holding us up here. No one's really talking about it. We've spoken to the Corvette concierge. We've reached out to Chevy's PR department, and they just essentially say it's a part supply issue, but it's not chips. It's not the semiconductor chips.
Okay.
It just seems to me like, knowing that with Monday being a holiday and they only had the 4 days then this week, I'm wondering if they just said, you know what, let's go ahead and just stockpile as many parts as we can and then see if we can make a run through the end of the model year without any more closures. Hard to say what's happening. Obviously, it's not the ideal situation. When they last produced a car, that number was 14,558 was the VIN on that.
Okay.
We've been hearing that the model year for the 2021 production will run through mid-August, maybe into early September. How this will all affect, these shutdowns will all affect June's allocations, which is the final allocation for the model year. It's just hard to say. We don't know if they're just going to try to extend it or if they're just going to cut it off and say, sorry, but this is what we're dealing with right now. We're just going to have to watch and see what they do.
It's unfortunate, but what do you do? And this is unprecedented because it's the second consecutive week to shut down the plant.
Yeah, it's been very rare that they've done more than 1 week at a time. We saw that back in February where it first happened. Again, that was related to transmissions, as we were told. But yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation. But, you know, the manufacturers, the auto manufacturers are dealing with this on a huge scale. And it's just not Corvette. Chevrolet and GM, I think, had 4 or 5 different plants shut down. Some of the shutdowns, I think Camaro, the plant that was shut down for several weeks.
Wow.
Then the other flip side is that Ford and Chevy are building trucks, but they can't complete them. So they're building what they can, and then they're just parking them. So there might be 40 or 50,000 trucks between Ford and Chevy alone that have been constructed, but can't be delivered because they're still waiting on some crucial parts. It's mostly related to chips there.
Amazing.
We're just in our own little bubble here with Corvettes. And of course, we all want the Corvette to come out, and especially the people who had TPWs, target production weeks for the car coming up. But there's a lot more going on than just our problems with Tremec and transmission.
Very true.
Hopefully everybody will just take a deep breath. We'll get through this together. The car will come, so just hang in there if you're waiting.
On the positive side, Keith, Chevrolet has offered tips on how to keep the C8's LT2 engine running well. I was glad to see that.
Yeah, they reached out to several of the forums and just say, hey, we wanted to give you a statement on this. And so I think what they're seeing is in some of their diagnostic testing, and of course, if an engine breaks down, we followed Paul Corner, the Corvette mechanic, where he had to do an engine replacement. They get those engines back at Detroit, they tear them down and figure out what's going on with them. So one of the things that they're seeing is that many Corvette owners are doing these short startup iterations where, you just start the car for a second or a minute and it's not fully heating up. So they want to see, instead of just turning off and off the car really quickly, if you're like even just moving it around the garage or your driveway or whatever, they want to see you start it up and let it run for about 3 minutes or so, or at least until the coolant temperature reaches greater than 125. It seems to me, like I said, they've got some diagnostic information that supports this. And then the other flip side is they want us to go drive our cars, amazingly. They said get out there and exercise them, have fun on your favorite road, let the RPMs flow. That all helps keep the spark plugs clean. That's dealing with like a carbon buildup that they were seeing on those. So yeah, get out there and drive. That's a great advice from Chevrolet.
That's really cool. And also, Executive Chief Engineer Tadge Juechter talked about the brake fade warning system on the C8. It's nice to see them coming out and talking about these things.
Well, especially on some of these diagnostic systems that the car has, where a lot of times, you're driving and all of a sudden you'll see a warning system on your dash display there. You might not know exactly what that means. What does a level 1 warning mean for brake fade? He's done this Ask Tadge column over at the Corvette forum for a couple of years now, but it looks like they actually have moved that over just to Chevrolet.com, which is where they seem to be posting that now. So you can see Ask Tadge at Chevrolet.com, and you just go to the Corvette page there. That's where they're posting that. But yeah, he shows some of the screen grabs showing the warning system. There's actually 2 stages to the brake fade. The most important thing he says, I think, is that if you're seeing brake fade, if you're feeling it, brake fade is where you're aggressively pressing on the brakes and you're taking longer and longer to stop. The first warning is going to obviously say, hey, you might want to cool down those brakes. But the second one is it's going to throw codes and you're going to have to take it into service.
Oh.
One of the considerations, he says, is that this is all for stock OEM parts. So if you're running a different brand of brake pads or you've changed the rotors around, the brake fade system might not work correctly. But it's a really technical, in-depth article. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, yeah, definitely go read it.
Absolutely right. Also, a judge ruled that the cracked wheel lawsuit can proceed on the C7s. That was interesting to see.
Yeah, this has been going on, and it looks like from this judge, they've got like 5 or 6 different law firms that are working with plaintiffs. From what we understand, there's about 18 plaintiffs that have been accepted. It's a class action lawsuit. There's some different regulations out there regarding how many members of the class action lawsuit there need to be. And on warranty claims, it generally needs to be, you have to have 100 members of this lawsuit. But the judge said, no, we're going to proceed with the 18. And then there's various claims as well that have been going back and forth, with Chevy actually getting a couple of them thrown out. But they are ruling that these claims can proceed. What's going on is on the C7, Z06, and Grand Sports, these wheels are cast, which means that the aluminum's poured into a mold. They're cast aluminum, and then they're finding these little hairline fractures after just several thousand miles of driving. And a lot of the drivers that we've talked to that have experienced cracked rims on their cars, they're not aggressive driving at all. This is just normal everyday driving. Some cars will have 1,000 miles, some will have 10,000. But what's happening is these owners are having to spend upwards of $1,000 per wheel to replace it, but then you're replacing it with a potentially defective wheel again. So it's not a good situation at all. We really hope that they can find some relief here. Whether or not other people can join in, whether or not there's some sort of overall ruling, we'll just have to wait and see. It's a bad situation for sure.
It is. I've got aftermarket wheels, so I don't have to worry about that, but it's sure sad to see that this situation is really going on and on and on. Finally, Keith, Australia is getting the 2022 C8 Corvette, but it just got more expensive. What happened?
Well, like everything, you see the cars are advertised at an MSRP price, but then you always kind of think in the back of your mind, oh, there's going to be some document fees and maybe a delivery charge. You know, we have the shipping charges over here. Over in Australia, they've also got a luxury tax on cars with an MSRP of greater than $67,500, I believe.
Okay.
So that goes into place. And then you also have stamp fees based on what state or territory you live in.
Oh.
So on this car that's already starting at $145,000 for the 2LT coupe, you could have another $40,000 in fees tacked onto it.
Whoa.
Which is now pushing that car upwards of $200,000. We've been told by one gentleman in our comment section that it was just one dealership that was showing those prices. So it could vary based on whatever dealership is selling that car in that state and territory. Mm-hmm. But that's what they're doing is these extra taxes and fees are just really blowing up the price of the cars.
Wow. Well, keep an eye on that for us and let us know what's going on, okay?
Absolutely, yep.
Let's take our first break, buddy. And in the segment number 2, we're going to talk about Corvette Racing on Corvette Today.
American Hydrocarbon, your one-stop shop for custom interior, exterior, and engine bay items for your C4 through C8 Corvette. We can help you create a custom look for your Corvette with carbon fiber or 10 different color patterns and styles. We've served customers in over 28 countries all around the world. Whether it's a custom-made engine cover for your new C8 mid-engine Corvette or custom-made C4 interior upgrades, American Hydrocarbon can help you transform your Corvette into a best-in-class show car. Our products have been featured in Vette and Corvette magazines, so give us a call. 813-476-5638. That's 813-476-5638. Visit our website at AmericanHydrocarbon.com or email us at pat@AmericanHydrocarbon.com. Let us help you make your Corvette the car you've always wanted it to be. American Hydrocarbon.
KC Trends Motorsports has been the Midwest's largest custom wheel superstore for over 25 years. They specialize in C8 wheel fitments from the top brands in the industry, like HRE, Vossen, ADV1, Avant-Garde, and more. They ship daily from their Kansas City location to all upper 48 states with the best pricing and inventory in the country. Need tires? KC Trends Motorsports has you covered. They have tires in stock from Michelin and Pirelli. Plus, they can help you with a customized wheel and tire combo for your Corvette to truly make it one of a kind. And if you need wheel ideas, no problem. Simply go online to kctrends.com for their car and wheel visualizer. See the wheels on your Corvette before you purchase. Also, there's dozens of wheels and tire combo pictures to look through online to spur your imagination. And their expert staff is there to help you with wheel and tire sizing and offsets for your C6, C7, and C8 Corvette. Visit them online at kctrends.com. See them on Facebook and Instagram. Make any Corvette a one-of-a-kind with KC Trends Motorsports. Call them toll-free, 877-962-5200. KC Trends Motorsports.
And now, back to Corvette Today with your host and my husband, Steve Garrett.
Hey, thanks for listening to Corvette Today, the podcast that talks about everything Corvette. I'm your host, Steve Garrett. I appreciate you tuning in. Keith Cornett is with us from CorvetteBlogger.com. Every other week, Keith is with us to keep us up to date on what's going on in the world of Corvette. In segment number 2, we're going to talk about Corvette Racing. Keith, Mobil One, the grid, profiled the drivers of Corvette Racing, which was so cool.
Yeah, they film these in advance. They roll them out throughout the season. We're kind of in a little bit of a lull right now. We haven't had any racing action for the C8Rs. They went over to the WEC in Europe, but here in the States, our last race was Sebring. We're kind of in a lull right now. We're begging for content wherever we get it. And Mobil Won the Grid always puts out some really nice features on the team. Obviously, Mobil One's a technical partner with the Corvette Racing team, so it makes a lot of sense there. But yeah, this was a nice tie-in. They really kind of focused on Nick Tandy and him joining the team. Of course, he had some very complimentary things to say about Oliver Gavin, the driver he replaced. They both are from the same hometown back in England that have probably known each other pretty well. And so, yeah, there's some complimentary stuff that's there. But, the team members, they all talk about each other and what they are trying to accomplish. You got obviously, the C8R's been doing very well the last 2 seasons, and so they want to continue that success. So Mobil Won the Grid, a great channel there on YouTube. Go take a look at that. Of course, we have it here in Corvette Blogger as well. Our next race is the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle. I think the Corvettes race Saturday night at 5 o'clock on June 12th.
Very nice. Very nice. Also, it was nice to see Danica Patrick driving the Indy 500 C8 pace car. That was really cool.
Yep, it's a good-looking pace car. The more I see it, I really kind of like the tones. The base coat's the white with obviously the black trim and stuff like that, but then they use yellow in certain areas, and it ties in with the yellow calipers. They have yellow on the aero and on the high wing, but it's a good-looking car. And, of course, it makes sense bringing in Danica. She was a Chevrolet driver. Obviously a driver there at Indy as well. She holds several records for top finishes as a female driver at Indianapolis. Good to see the car out on the track. It must be amazing, to be driving a car and have all those Indy cars behind you, leading the pack, so to speak, for that first green flag. Pretty interesting.
Very cool. And also, we reported on this a couple of weeks ago, the C4 Sledgehammer. The high bid on that car was $500,000. $500,000. It wasn't enough.
Not enough to bring home what was the fastest car in the world for a long time. If you remember, it ran 254.76 at the Ohio Transportation Research Center there on their huge oval track. This car has been one of my favorites forever. It's one of my top 5 favorites, actually. Would love to see this go to a great collector. Would like to see it actually in a place where we could also see it. The fact that it didn't sell maybe gives it a chance. Maybe we can see it end up in a museum somewhere. But boy, it's a dynamite car. It's got a legendary reputation. It definitely deserves to be out there and shown. Maybe this is a good thing, and we'll see what happens the next time it goes up for sale.
I wonder what it would have taken to get that car sold. If $500,000 wasn't good enough, what do you think that number would be?
I think that they were probably looking upwards of $1 million.
Wow, they're only halfway there. Interesting.
Right. And they got to that halfway real quick, too. That was the other thing. It went right to $500,000, and then it seemed to stall out for the rest of the auction.
No kidding.
We're going to keep an eye on it and see if it shows up again.
And finally, in the Corvette Racing segment, Keith, this isn't about Corvette Racing, but it's about Corvette drag racing. Fuel Tech's C8 goes wheels up, and it posts a new trap record on the track.
So we've been following the Fuel Tech team. They took the high horsepower record away from Amelia Hartford with a dyno run of 1,075, and that's horsepower at the wheels. They've been out on the track with it. I think they've done a 9.6. They went back to a track. They rented out a private track and then had it to themselves. They've brought in Steve Faraday from Late Model Racecraft, who also has experience with twin turbo setups. And they're really trying to maximize their launches. They even added nitrous to the car so they could launch it. And then the nitrous shuts off as their turbochargers are all spooled up with the maximum amount of boost. So it's pretty interesting what they're doing. But what we've really seen is that this has really opened up a little rivalry between Fuel Tech and their car and then Amelia Hartford and her car. She's got the fastest car. She did a 9.41 at the quarter mile. Fastest time for Fuel Tech, I believe, is 9.667. The funny thing is now that Fuel Tech has the highest horsepower rating, Amelia just put out another video saying that she's trying to get it back. And so we kind of go through and watch her trials and tribulations as she's doing that. It's a friendly rivalry. They're commenting on each other's YouTube posts. When you get up to 1,000 horsepower, trying to get more can be a little bit difficult, and they're both kind of running into that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I know Amelia says that she wants to get her car into the 8s. Fuel Tech, their system's really nicely set up. They have a controller integrated into the cup holder so they can make changes to the fuel mappings and things like that on the fly. So it's a really interesting setup. And at some point, I think they're probably going to start selling packages. It's fun to watch this development, but knowing that if you wanted to, you could do something similar with your car. I think that's what makes these so much fun.
Absolutely. Well, it's on. We'll see how that goes. Keep us updated, okay?
Exactly. Right, we'll do.
We'll take our second break, Keith, and in the third segment, we'll talk about the lighter side of Corvette on Corvette Today.
VetFinders.com is the internet's original Corvette classified ads website, with classified ads starting at just $25, and every ad runs until your Corvette is sold. If you're in the market for a Corvette, VetFinders.com has over 500 Corvettes for sale from all around the USA and Canada, and covering all 8 generations. Visit VetFinders.com, the internet's destination for buying and selling Corvettes. That's VETTE Finders.com.
Hey, honey, are you awake?
I am now.
I can't sleep. Since turning 50, I keep dreaming of a red door and a blue door, somehow knowing there are only choices for retirement.
Okay.
Through the red door, we outlive our money. We have to rely on our kids. We're stuck on a fixed income. It's terrifying.
Yeah, that would suck.
But through the blue door, our money outlives us. We retire on our terms. Our kids stay our kids, not our caretakers. We make work optional.
Yes, that's much better. That's what I want too. But what do we do?
We call True Wealth & Company at 913-653-8783. They specialize in helping successful people make work optional. They're our fiduciary Blue Door personal wealth managers.
Hey, where are you going? It's 3 a.m.
I can't sleep. I'm going to check out True Wealth & Company online at retirewithtrue.com. That Blue Door is going to be our retirement.
913-653-8783. Visit us online at retirewithtrue.com. Investment advice offered through True Wealth & Company, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Kansas.
This is the Corvette Today podcast with Steve Garrett.
Hey, thanks for listening to Corvette Today, the podcast that talks about everything Corvette. I'm your host, Steve Garrett. With me today is Keith Cornett. Keith is here every other week. He's from CorvetteBlogger.com. We keep you up to date on what's going on in the world of Corvette. Keith, on the lighter side, we've got some great stories. Finally, the C8 Corvette is featured on Top Gear. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is Top Gear America that runs on Motor Trend. They did like best driver's car under $100,000. So, of course, the C8 was there. They had a Porsche and then a Lotus. The guys did a shootout, but of course, it's Top Gear, so the shootout's not like the fastest car or all that. It's what can this car do to prove my theory, so to speak. So for like Dax Shepard, his theory was he's always going, he's working so hard that he eats a lot in his car. So what car is the easiest one to eat in? And of course, he's out there doing burnouts while trying to take the bites of these burgers and stuff. And it's pretty funny. But again, it's fun to see these kinds of shows. We know that Top Gear in the United States has never really broken out, but this is a fun group of guys. It's great to see our car on there. So we're going to be paying attention. Hopefully we'll be able to see the Plastic Fantastic return to Top Gear America.
Wait, buddy. There's no eating in Corvettes.
Right. Yeah, not according to Dax Shepard.
Well, somebody's got to get with Dax Shepard and tell him there's no eating in Corvettes. There's no crying in baseball, and there's no eating in Corvettes.
That's right.
Also, Corvettes at Woodward, the charity event is kind of taking shape, and that's really cool because the Woodward event up in Michigan is kind of like the pinnacle up there, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the Woodward Dream Cruise, and that will happen on Saturday, August 21st. But for the last 10, 15 years, there's a guy up there, Larry Courtney, great guy, puts together a number of Corvette-related events, and they start early in the week. So generally on the Wednesday before the Woodward Dream Cruise, there's always a Corvettes on Woodward event. Of course, people are already driving and cruising the boulevard anyways. And then you get out there and we got like 300 or 400 Corvettes from Larry's group will get out there. And what they do is not only do they cruise, but they'll make a run. They'll drop off supplies at food banks. And then he also organizes generally like tours where you go see like the Lingenfelder collection or you go to the GM Heritage Center. So he's got a lot of great stuff up there. So we follow him. Our guy, Steve Burns, our Detroit bureau up there will usually participate as well. So if you're in the area and you want to do some really fun stuff that week, yeah, you want to hook up with Larry Courtney and his group. And everything kicks off on August 18th. It looks like a lot of fun.
Very nice. Also, Lance Miller's Cunningham Corvettes were just featured at Amelia Island. That had to be a great display.
We've been talking about, he's got this charity car for the Chip Miller and Amyloidosis Foundation, and it's a C8, but it's upgraded to 600 horsepower. They call it the Cunningham edition. The 68th anniversary, of course, references 60 years back to the first Corvettes to win at Le Mans in 1960. They've got this car that's going to be raising money for the foundation. And so it made its debut at Amelia Island alongside the winning car from Le Mans, the number 3 car, 1960 Corvette, that is owned by Land. pretty cool to see those two cars together. And of course, during the event, there was also the auction there. That's where the unrestored car, the number one car, there was 3 cars that raced at Le Mans in 1960. Actually, there was 4, but there was 3 of them that were part of the Briggs Cunningham group. They've known where 2 of these cars are forever. This third one's been through all these legal wranglings. We've talked about it. That car sold. The hammer price was $675, I think, and then out the door was $785. But the cool thing about that car was that it was actually purchased by the grandson of Briggs Cunningham. It sounds like it's going to be restored through Kevin McKay's shop, Corvette Repair. We're going to see this car eventually on the show circuit, so it should be pretty exciting.
Absolutely fantastic. And Kevin McKay is the guy to make that car look the way it did back in 1960.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he restored the number 3 car. He's intimately familiar with it. All these 3 cars were all set up exactly the same. So even though that Cunningham car was heavily modified after the race, they're going to get it looking back the way it should. So it should be interesting, a lot of fun.
And here's a story that's near and dear to my heart because Hallmark here in Kansas City is offering a torch red C8 Corvette Christmas ornament.
Nothing says Christmas like Corvettes, right? I've been a Hallmark fan for years. Not only do I have several Corvettes on the tree, but I've got a whole slew of Star Wars ornaments as well over the years. It was great with the kids when we were growing up. They had a lot of fun with that, but now they mostly just stay in the box. But the Corvette stuff, I've got several of them that they've done over the years. And that's the great thing is, you buy this once and then for the next how many years, every year you're setting up your tree, you're like, oh yeah, the red Stingray. A lot of fun. These are only going to be like $19.95, so they're not that expensive. But here's the deal is they always sell out. And once they're sold out, if you wanted one, you'd have to go to eBay and then pay for it that way. They're going to be offered for sale this summer, I believe. You'll be able to find them for $19.99. And then also you can go to hallmark.com and you can see them there.
And I'm sorry, everybody, even though Hallmark is here in Kansas City, I have no connections at Hallmark, so you're going to have to order through the website and get it just like everybody else. Sorry about that. And Keith, finally, our feel-good story of the day, an 87-year-old man buys his very, very first Corvette. This is a great story.
You're never too young to buy your first Corvette, right?
Right.
He's 87 years old, Vern Eden from Valley Forge, Washington. The picture shows him he's a farmer. He's wearing overalls, and he talks about using the car. He's made a couple parts runs for his tractors in it.
Wow.
I think the funny quote is that he says, they asked him what took him so long to buy a Corvette. He says, well, they finally got this one right because he likes the balance of having the mid-engine and the cornering capabilities and how it looks and drives. He says they finally got this one right. It's fun to listen to some of his quotes. He wants to get out there and test the launch control and see how fast he can go with it too. So like I said, you're never too young to own a Corvette.
87 years old. That is fantastic.
Right.
Well, buddy, thanks for being on Corvette Today. We will see you in 2 weeks and we'll get more information and keep everybody up to date on our News and Headlines podcast.
Absolutely. All the stories we talked about are on CorvetteBlogger.com, and we see you out there. Keep waving, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Corvette Today, and thanks to our sponsors, American Hydrocarbon at AmericanHydrocarbon.com and KC Trends Motorsports at KCTrends.com. And don't forget E-Tech Custom Coatings at ETEKCustomCoatings.com or call 913-745-3732.
You've been listening to Corvette Today with Steve Garrett. If you'd like to contact Steve with any thoughts on the podcast or ideas for guests on Corvette Today, you can email him at stevegarrettdj@gmail.com. That's stevegarrettdj@gmail.com. Garrett has 2 R's and 2 T's. Or connect with Steve on social media on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using @SteveGarrettDJ. Thanks again for listening to Corvette Today.